Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have the full review of the OPPO A78. Let's get started. This is a mid-range oriented device, and in this case I was surprised that OPPO has changed its strategy a bit because it has slightly reduced its prices, since in the past it felt that its prices were too high, but this year it seems that they have been adapting a little better. Anyway, OPPO is not positioned as an economic brand, but it seems that its proposal has improved and even has also improved its distribution, since at least here in Mexico it will no longer be distributed exclusively in Telcel but has a super wide distribution, and that can be a strong point so that it is not so difficult to acquire it. The official launch price of this device in Mexico is 6,999 pesos. On the screen, you see the reference price in dollars, but remember that the prices here are not the same as there. You can buy it in the main telephone companies like Telcel, AT&T, and Movistar, but also in other stores like Liverpool, Sears, Electra, and online you can find it in Sam's Club, Amazon, and Mercado Libre. Although if you are going to buy it online, it would be advisable to verify well that it is the official distribution, because there could also be other grey market sellers, and OPPO has already announced that it will block those devices. So you have to be careful where you buy it. Having said all this, how about joining me to get to know this device point by point, to see if it can stand up to its main competitors that were popping up on your screen? The front of this device is well designed. We have a considerably reduced bezels, except for the bottom bezel, where we do notice a size a little larger than we would like, but at this price is still something normal to see. What is not so normal is to find Gorilla Glass 5, and this device does integrate this level of protection. That's something I find very curious, because even higher-end OPPO devices don't integrate Gorilla Glass protection. So it is a bit strange, the behavior that OPPO has in their devices, but it definitely has a very good level of resistance against any fall or against scratches. It is also curious that they have decided to integrate the camera cutout oriented to the upper left corner, which is a design that is no longer very common to see in the middle of the year. On the right side we have power button and volume buttons. The top frame is completely clean. On the left frame is the tray where we can place a micro SD card and also a nano SIM card. In other regions it is likely that the dual SIM version will also be available, but in Mexico it seems that only this version will be available. At the bottom is placed the headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port, and the speaker that we will talk about in a moment. As usual within OPPO devices, we have a very slim design with a thickness of 7.99 millimeters and has a weight of only 180 grams, placing it as a comfortable device to hold in the hand, and that will not be heavy. The back cover is made of plastic, and in this case I have in my hands the green edition, although in my eyes it looks a bit more blue. And as you notice, it has an interesting finish that produces diamond-shaped reflections in a very attractive way. In addition to this, it is also available in black color for those who like a little more serious design. And finally, it doesn't have any certification against water, although it should easily resist some light splashes. The screen is excellent for this price range. It has a size of 6.43 inches, so it is a considerably compact device for what we usually see in devices in the middle of 2023. Its resolution is Full HD+, 2400 by 1080 pixels, so it maintains a very good density to have extremely sharp content, not only in images and videos, but even in small print text. The technology of this screen is AMOLED, so it's going to offer us very intense colors and contrasts, as well as good viewing angles, although according to the range. So it's not a high-end screen, but definitely within its price range, yes, it's a screen that we could get to highlight. Because usually here other manufacturers put LCD or IPS screens, but in this case, having AMOLED screen, it offers us a very high quality. The maximum brightness level is suitable for outdoor use, and the minimum brightness level could also facilitate the use in low light conditions. It has two color calibration modes and also a manual calibrator for you to choose whether you want cooler or warmer tones. It also has some eye protection modes, including a black and white mode, and this screen has a 90 Hz refresh rate, so it can display sufficiently smooth movements. You might find some equipment that goes up to 120, but I think it will consume more power than necessary, so I find it adequate to have 90 Hz to have a balance of good power consumption with enough fluidity to show all the animations. So I conclude that I really like this display. Now you are about to listen to an audio recording using the microphone of this device.
Este es un audio de prueba grabado desde el OPPO A78 con el único micrófono que incorpora.
The audio quality of the microphone will be good, but it's definitely disappointing that it's only a microphone. In case you cover it up, you will be completely unheard and there is no noise cancellation or anything special for calls. So all audio picked up with this microphone will be simple. In this price range, I would think that virtually all of its competitors will have two microphones because we usually only see one microphone on entry-level devices. So it's unacceptable to see only one microphone on a device in this price range. But not everything that has to do with audio is bad, as it integrates a speaker at the bottom and another speaker in the earpiece area for calls. So we have stereo sound, which is also of very high power. It sounds very loud and even has a special 300% volume mode, which increases the gain. I don't like that name, but it does increase the power of the treble to make the volume even louder. It's a sound that has no distortion, so it seems to me to be of excellent quality, although it obviously won't have a very strong bass presence. But within the range, we could not demand much more from it. In fact, it is possibly the loudest sounding device in this range. Let's listen to a little test, though remember it's not the same as listening to it live. It definitely stands out a lot in its volume, although it does get to raise the annoying frequencies too much when you activate the 300% volume mode. But even at 100% volume, it sounds very loud. It also incorporates real sound technology, where we have some Dolby Atmos style surround sound presets. And interestingly, if you're in the music preset and you plug in headphones, the equalizer will also appear, which is 7-band and comes with a number of presets that you can apply. It would be great if this equalizer was enabled even with headphones disconnected, but that's not available. And if instead of using wired headphones, you want to use wireless headphones, the good news is that in addition to supporting the basic codecs, it also supports Qualcomm's aptX HD codec in case you want to connect headphones compatible with this codec to enjoy higher resolution wireless audio. The front camera of this device is 8 megapixels with f2.0 point aperture and fixed focus. It will offer us a considerably good capture speed, and if we hold down the shutter, we do not have any burst. What we will find will be a beauty mode, which has multiple parameters such as modifying the texture of the skin, the size of the cheeks, eyes, nose, chin, and even the size of your head, and a makeup and lighting retouching 3D. Also available here are some filters that we can preview in real time. In the settings, we can enable a special capture showing the palm of the hand, or you could also choose to tap on any area of the screen to activate the shutter in case it is too difficult to touch it with the finger. I see the results of the front-facing camera to be in line with its price. It has a considerably high level of detail, although not sufficiently saturated colors, but it is acceptable at this price. Indoors, you will notice that the quality drops, having a greater presence of noise, lower color saturation, and lower level of detail, although, again, it is somewhat normal at this price. In backlit scenes, the preview still doesn't look optimized, but after doing the capture, I find that it manages to balance highlights and shadows well, although colors still look slightly paler than I would like, and there is more presence of grain. But I insist, let's not get too picky considering the price point, although I do think there will be other devices that have better quality selfies at this price point. At night, the front camera has an acceptable performance. As in indoor pictures, we see that the level of detail drops and appears a little more grainy. However, this device does allow us to use the night mode on the front camera, and with it, notice that it greatly improves the capture of colors, the capture of details, although there is still a little grainy, but really that is in the background when we see the improvement in quality. In indirect light areas, we're going to have a simple result. With night mode, it improves a little bit, even removing a little bit of the warm tone saturation that was there, but it still gives simple results. In night backlight, it definitely can't do much to try to get a better result, although the screen can be turned on as a flash simulation and improves the result. And with night mode and the screen, you could have a slightly more balanced result in light. This front camera is also capable of taking portraits, and at night it takes a very nice bokeh effect if you have lights in the background, although it still doesn't have a very good level of detail to say the least. In the daytime, the portraits look more artificial, mainly because it is not able to detect objects. And also some illuminated areas in the back could look like artificial lights, so I really think it looks very exaggerated, this result. By the way, I had forgotten to tell you about how wide the lens is, and it's good enough it has fixed focus, but you still come out well in focus with your arm outstretched. But if you are going to take a group selfie, it has a panoramic selfie mode, so you have a much wider picture. On the back, we will find the 50 megapixel camera with f1.8 aperture and autofocus, and the second camera is simply for depth capture of 2 megapixels with f2.4 aperture. A very simple camera that we will see in a moment if it really gets to take advantage or not. In the settings, you can enable a quick access to the camera application so that having the screen locked, you can press twice some of the volume buttons and thus enter quickly. The capture speed is good, so yes, you can capture the exact moment, like here I wanted to capture the number 3. And if you hold down the shutter, notice that you can capture up to 20 pictures, although unfortunately it takes a long time to start. But once it does start, you can extract some of the moments from the captures. If you tap on the screen, we will be able to adjust the focus and exposure. However, if you want to move more parameters, you can enter the Pro mode. Here you can adjust ISO, shutter speed, exposure compensation, focus and white balance. And it even has an option to display a histogram in case you're a more experienced photographer. The downside is that you can't take raw photos for advanced post-processing. Also in these photos you have facial retouching, although not with all the parameters that we saw in the front camera. And we also have all the color filters that we had already seen before. In automatic mode, you will not be able to scan documents, but in text scanner mode, it will automatically detect the edges of this sheet to automatically do the cropping for you. This scan is saved as a JPG, but if you share it and then send it to print, you can select in the additional options if you want to save it as PDF. QR codes will not be read by the main camera interface either, but it does have a shortcut in the lower left corner to Google Lens, through which you can do this action without any problems. Interestingly, this device includes an extra HD mode, which instead of taking the 50 megapixel photo, it takes the 108 megapixel photo, but they are interpolated pixels. So the reality of things is that it doesn't look like that much resolution. Possibly 50 megapixels, but not beyond that. So yes, it is capable of giving you detailed photos, but nothing really spectacular. In fact, it is very curious that in the extra HD mode, it lets you apply 2x digital zoom, and still the photo is 50 megapixels, but the reality of things is that the image quality does not go according to the 50 megapixels that the specifications say. Moving pictures appear in good quality, although my face was captured in a very funny moment. This camera gives good results outdoors. We have considerably good color, although not 100% accurate, but it is something very normal to see in devices in this range. Indoors, I like that it does manage to saturate colors well despite not having so much lighting, although there is a bit of graininess, but nothing really serious. In backlit scenes, we see a preview that is not yet optimized, but after taking the picture, it improves the colors, although the highlights area is still overexposed, so it doesn't have great capabilities in this type of lighting conditions. At night, with the automatic mode, we have a good light capture, although it does not have as high a level of detail as we would like. However, if you use the night mode, the level of detail increases dramatically, so it is highly recommended to use this mode if you are going to take night shots, especially in dark conditions, because if you have a closer light source, the result will be positive and there will not be much difference between the main photo and the photo with the night mode. The zoom of this device is basic, but it seems to me that it does get to take advantage of its high-resolution sensor. We have here the photograph 2x digital, then 5x digital, and finally 10x that reaches maximum reach, although I insist that it is a zoom equal to what we can find in other devices in this range. Consider that we do not have an ultra-wide camera present for shots with more space, but you can use the panoramic mode to have a scene with more space, and the truth is that it works well, also having a good level of detail and good color rendering. This device does not integrate a macro camera, but its main camera is capable of adjusting its focus to small objects, maintaining good color. Even if you apply digital zoom 2x's before taking the picture, I think you will get an even more attractive result. So, you don't need a macro camera to take these kinds of shots and they come out very well. Portraits will also come out with good quality. It seems that it really does get to take advantage of its special camera to perform this type of depth detection, as it not only keeps focused on the person, but also on the objects that are at our same distance, maintaining a very nice bokeh effect in the background. So, the portraits I did like. Even this is a portrait captured with the rear camera at night, so you can also see the bokeh effect generated by the lights. The video recording does not surprise but meets within what one would expect in a device of this price, reaching up to Full HD. In the lower right corner, we will find a button where we can apply retouching and color effects. However, if you apply retouching, the video resolution is downgraded to HD. When recording a video, we will have a slider for zooming, although we do not have quick presets buttons, but we can take screenshots of this video, pause and resume our recording, and we can also turn on the flashlight without the need to cut the recording of our video. The only thing it doesn't allow us to do is rotate to the front camera without stopping the recording. If you tap on the screen, you can adjust the focus and exposure, but it does not have a professional video mode. The video recording will be simple. The colors feel a bit dull and does not stand out too much in this aspect, although fortunately it is not seen to be having jumps or abrupt changes in exposure and white balance, but it will definitely not be a point where it gets to stand out much. Indoors, you feel even paler colors, so I don't think you're going to have as pleasant an experience recording with this device. In backlight, you will again notice very pale colors, and in this case the focus may struggle more than we would like. Also, you see a bit more aggressive jumps in exposure in exchange for illuminating your face, although curiously the balance of light and shadow is not bad at all, but the rest of the aspects make the final result not so positive. At night, the result will have a lot of noise, so it is not recommended to record with this device if you are not in bright light conditions. Digital stabilization is integrated, but it is basic, so you can disguise the movements when you are walking, especially if you take care not to move the camera too much, but if you start running, the result will definitely not be very stable. The zoom is very similar to what we see in this range, a zoom that definitely looks like a stretched image. Its maximum range is 10x, but actually the maximum I would recommend you get is 4x to still retain a decent quality. Fortunately, it does have stabilization, and that can improve the result. Focusing can become very fast with some brief moments of confusion, especially if you have a bit uneven lighting. But in good lighting, the focus does react quickly, both in fast movements and in slightly slower, more subtle movements. This device has a slow motion mode, although in HD resolution only and at frames per second. However, in the price range it is appreciated that it does integrate this option. We will also find fast camera that can go from 15x to 960, but it does not have stabilization, so the result is not very pleasant. The front camera also does not record with stabilization, although it does record in full HD. So again, the result is not very nice for recording content for blogs or something similar. The colors as in the rear camera look a bit pale and the backlight performance is very poor. So it's a very simple front camera for recording videos and I wouldn't recommend using it too much. Indoors, it's also going to suffer. You even notice some more aggressive jumps in exposure changes and the colors still look slightly pale. It doesn't have a slow front-facing camera, but it does have a fast camera. But just as we saw with the rear camera, it doesn't have stabilization and colors still look very pale. The positive thing about this camera system in video is that it does have dual recording mode and the rear camera has autofocus enabled and also has the zoom option enabled. Although the zoom is already a bit weak, but it's nice to have this split screen mode. Although it doesn't allow you to swap the cameras, but if you stop the recording, you can also switch to a picture-in-picture mode with a circle. Although you can't resize that circle and it has a stop on the right, so you can't move it as far as you want. We also have the rectangle mode, which has exactly the same behavior. It also doesn't allow us to swap cameras, but it's pretty straightforward. This device comes with Android 13 and on top of Color OS 13.1. In both cases, we see the latest software from both Google and OPPO. Although being a mid-range, OPPO still does not integrate absolutely all the features that it usually integrates in upper mid-range devices or its premium series. However, it is a well-made operating system, stable and with good maturity. To this series, OPPO promises 1 year of software updates and 3 years of security patches, which is not the most advanced we will find, but at least there is a clear policy of updates. This device has a sidebar from which we can open some shortcuts or applications directly. Some of them can be opened in a floating window mode, although unfortunately YouTube is not supported in this mode, but it opens in full screen and we cannot open two applications at the same time in this floating format. What we can do is move them around the screen and also change their dimensions. In addition, if you open the gallery in this floating window mode, you could also get to drag and drop content to send photos via WhatsApp easily, to give an example. This device also incorporates the always-on display function, which will allow us to display the time, date, battery, and some notifications when we have the screen locked. Although being a mid-range device, OPPO does not enable the option of having multiple covers with different designs, so we only have a basic design. Finally, we will find the function of illuminating the edges, even though it does not have a curved screen, at the time of receiving some notifications, so that with the screen off we have a nice animation. As you can see, it is a well-designed system with good features, although it is not the most advanced in the industry in terms of added software. In security, it is one of the most complete devices. It has a fingerprint reader inside the screen, which is capable of making up to 5 records. The recognition is not as fast as the readers that are outside the screen, but it is enough to leave for a little longer your finger on top of it to make a correct recognition. The fact that it is inside the screen gives it a much more modern look, and also allows a new level of customization by changing the type of animation that is displayed when unlocking the device with this reader. Also, thanks to him, you will be able to find a quick launch function where you can choose several applications to be in a quick shortcut, and simply when you are unlocking, you can access them. Just hold your finger after unlocking the device so that these shortcuts appear, and when you release it, you will access that application. It also incorporates facial recognition, but, like almost all devices today, is a recognition only in 2 dimensions that even this device tells us that it could easily unlock with someone similar to you. So it is best not to use facial recognition, and if you want a comfortable experience to not have to be putting your fingerprint or your pattern every time, you can enable Google Smart Lock and register places or trusted devices to keep the device unlocked. This device includes Google's password manager, although it does the filling automatically without first verifying through your fingerprint that it is indeed you. If you don't want that to happen, you can go to the Google section in Settings, then Autofill with Google again. And in the Preferences, you can now enable it to first verify through your fingerprint before filling in the fields. It should definitely come with that protection already enabled. In the privacy section, you will find many more tools such as App Lock, so that in case you lend your unlocked phone, there are still some applications that ask for your fingerprint again before they can run. In the same way, you could hide applications with a password and you can show them again writing a numeric code inside the call application. It also has a private safe through which you can securely store images, videos, audio, documents, and any file. It also includes children's space, where you can set time limits for children to use this device, and you can also authorize which applications they can use and which applications they can't use. Even this device gives you automatically the filter to not bother the eyes too much, and if you are playing with a very dark environment, will also remind you to go to a better lit environment to avoid damaging your eyesight. In this way, you can lend your cell phone to a little one without any fear that it will enter where it should not, because in order to get out of this way, it must verify with your fingerprint. Finally, if you lose your device, you will depend on Google's own implementation, since OPPO does not have its own application to find devices. Still, you could try to locate it on a map, but it is not such an advanced implementation. The battery is 5000 milliamps, although in my tests it performed slightly below the performance of devices with batteries of the same capacity. So I do not think it is very remarkable, although fortunately this way you can see specifically what applications are consuming battery. It also comes with an optimizer that gives you quick tips on how to make your battery consumption more efficient. You can even manually select which applications you want to be optimized for the battery and which applications are not. It has a very nice mode that already comes on, so that at night the device is going to sleep along with you. It will be so aware of notifications and thus will not spend so much of your battery at night. But while the battery life didn't surprise me much, what did surprise me was the charging speed. It's a charger that comes with OPPO's Super VOOC technology. This technology is quite good because in addition to being very fast, it also takes good care of the battery. According to OPPO's figures, this battery should withstand about 1600 cycles before seeing its battery degrade by 80%. That's practically double the best cell phones in the industry today. Although that only time will tell, as I don't have enough time to be charging and discharging this cell phone to do that test. But I like that OPPO not only ensures that it is a very fast charge, but that the battery will not be damaged. With this charger, in 15 minutes we recharge 36%, in 30 minutes 64%, and in 52 minutes the charge was completely finished. In the battery settings, you can see the current state of its health, so you can see if it is degrading very fast or not, and it also has an optimized charging algorithm so that in case you leave it charging all night, it also protects itself, and it charges very slowly the last part so that it finishes charging when you are already awake. What it does not incorporate is a charging lock mode, so if you are one of those people who need to have it connected to the current all the time, you could get to wear out much faster the health of this battery. The connectivity of this device is very good. Although it does not offer support for Wi-Fi 6 networks, its Wi-Fi 5 network actually works very fast. We will not find 5G connectivity either. Only 4G, but anyway, most devices in this price range that integrate 5G sacrifice much other aspects, and it seems to me that today, at least here in Mexico, it is not worth sacrificing so many things in exchange for having 5G, since the 5G networks in Mexico are not much faster than the 4G networks. This device has a function to block access to some applications definitely. In case you want, YouTube can only be played with Wi-Fi and never with data. This way you avoid bad surprises in your mobile data consumption. It also integrates Bluetooth 5.0 connectivity. In this aspect, it feels a bit simple, so it is not as stable as other more recent devices, but in this price range, we can possibly still accept it. It doesn't integrate NFC, so you won't be able to make mobile payments. There are many other devices in this price range and in lower prices that already start to integrate this chip. But if you are not a user who makes payments directly with the cell phone and banking terminals, you will not miss it. It does integrate OTG, so you can connect accessories through the USB port. However, you have to enable this option within the additional settings because it is not turned on by default, unlike all other devices. As for screen projection, this device will allow you to do it wirelessly on some TVs and monitors. If you want to project a Chromecast, you may need to install the Google Home app, but it is capable of doing so. It also has Android Auto if you want to display the contents of your cell phone on the screen of your car. And with respect to sensors, we have excellent news as this device has everything we could ask for, including gyroscope, a physical proximity sensor, and even the geomagnetic field sensor. So, you don't have any kind of problem here. The experience of the OPPO ecosystem will depend a lot on the country where you are located. In Mexico, it is an ecosystem that is just developing, since neither the OPPO Watch nor the OPPO Pad is available. But in other regions, it is an ecosystem that already has a considerably good level of integration. In Mexico, you will only be able to find its earphones and wristband, and the connectivity will obviously be positive between them, but it does not have a level of interaction as advanced as we would find in other devices. Although it has OPPO Share, in reality you will only be able to send content from one OPPO phone to another OPPO phone, because it is not a feature that you can install on a Windows computer. This model also doesn't include multi-screen connect technology, which we see in superior OPPO devices, to control your entire phone from your computer by installing the necessary software. But even though the OPPO ecosystem might be in development, the advantage is that it comes with Android, which has an open ecosystem and therefore can also connect to other brands' phones without too much trouble. You can send files wirelessly with Nearby Share. You can connect headphones with Google Fast Pair easily. So in a way, Google gets to compensate for the fact that the ecosystem is not so complete. In fact, it's also going to rely on Google with respect to cloud storage, and also with respect to controlling the devices in your home through the Internet of Things with Google Home. So it still doesn't feel like OPPO is very strong in the ecosystem section. This device includes Snapdragon processor, which is very common to find in devices of this same price. However, it also includes 8 GB of RAM that comes with the LPDDR4X version, and this section is not very common to see in this price range. It took about 3.75 seconds on average to open each of these 16 applications, a test that I believe passed with good speed. Although it has to be said clearly, speed is not the strongest point of this device, but I don't think it will disappoint either. Once you have loaded the applications, you will probably be able to maintain a much smoother experience due to the good amount of RAM that incorporates this device. Even if you notice, I already had several apps open and hadn't noticed. So let me close this whole thing out. Wow, I put it through a little bit of a tougher test than normal, and yet I still think it performed well. And notice that the 8 GB of RAM that it incorporates seems to be well utilized, because we didn't notice any reboots until now that we saw that TikTok did reboot. However, it is likely that this restart was due to all the applications I closed earlier. Notice how we can quickly switch back and forth between these applications. Although sometimes we do get to see restarts, but either way, it doesn't take too long when it comes time to switch back to the applications. The truth is that I feel that its behavior is considerably good. Let's see how it behaves when scrolling inside some applications that are downloading images and videos. From my point of view, it behaves very well, unlike other devices that at this price point might get to have a lot more stumbles. And you have to consider that we have all the apps still open, so it's not the only app that's running, and it's still performing in a very positive way. So I would think that while we won't have the most powerful processor that's available in this price range, we do have a considerably optimized experience. In this case, I am not using virtual RAM, but that option is also available, but I honestly don't recommend it because 8 GB of physical RAM is more than enough, so don't waste your storage in exchange for virtual RAM. Now let's see how long it takes this device to export a video of 4 joined clips with a total duration of 1 minute in full HD. And that's it. It took about 36 seconds. I think for the range it's okay, and I must insist that it won't be the most powerful device, but it does give you considerably good performance. And one of the most attractive points of this device will be its storage that goes up to 256 gigabytes, giving us an overly broad experience. So here you could store a lot of videos, a lot of images, and it's not going to fill up very fast. For games, this device will have a special application manager of all the games you have installed, but even lets you explore new content to discover other games. Also from this manager, you will be able to view a little more information of each of these games, and you can also access to view all the gameplays you have made. In addition, when accessing any of the games, we will find a sidebar with more tools. For starters, we can add direct shortcuts to any application so that we can run it in a floating window mode, to answer a message or make a query without the need to close our game. We will also find a frames per second monitor, and a pro gamer mode is available that will give a little more power to the processor in some games, but in case you want to save energy, you can also enable a special mode. A game focus mode is also available to restrict notifications and calls. We can also individually block calls, take screenshots or screen recordings, optimize network traffic to give priority to the game, and we can also optimize the touch feedback. We can also lock the rotation and cache this game so that the next time we run it, it can be opened much faster. It also has a voice changer to make our voice sound different in games that have voice chat, and a constant monitor of system resources and frames per second is available. And finally, we can somehow lock the screen in case the game is downloading content, so that the game does not suspend the game but also does not consume so much energy. In Call of Duty by default, this device loads medium quality at a medium frame rate. However, we can go up to very high quality, although if we go up to the high frame rate, the graphics quality drops to the lowest. So let's say the device needs a balance, but if you select the very high quality, you do have access to a good amount of filters and effects available for visual effects. First, we played with the very high quality enabled, and it certainly gave us a good performance. I think it goes with enough stability, although it is not free of some moments of low peaks in frames per second, but the truth is that they are very punctual moments and nothing that spoils your gameplay. In fact, it is appreciated that it has access to practically the most advanced graphics we see, although obviously it is not going to give you something that goes at 60 frames per second, then we could not say that it is a device focused 100% to gamers, and it should also be noted that at the time of recording the screen performance could go slightly below. Remember that our frames per second monitoring is done separately from the screen recording to see more or less how it is doing, so this device will give you good gameplay as long as you don't record the screen. In the low quality setting, if you raised your frame rate per second, so if you want very detailed graphics, it will not feel so fluid in the movements. But if you sacrifice a little the graphic theme and set a low graphics quality, yes, you could give a feeling of very smooth gameplay without any problem, although the temperature could get to rise a little, but still not to annoying levels. As I have already told you throughout the video, it is likely that in this price range if you are going to find more powerful devices, but this device does not disappoint. In Legends, we have an automatic setting, however, for our test we selected the medium graphics setting at 60 frames per second. The experience was slightly unstable, but nothing really serious. It is appreciated that we have good effects and good detail even with good fluidity, although it is not free of some moments where you can get to have locks and loss of frames, but nothing really serious, unless you are a super demanding person in the subject of gaming, but at this price you will not find something much better. In the SpongeBob game, we have by default the high resolution and high quality at 60 frames per second, which seems a very complex test for this device. The result was positive, although I think it would have been a much better experience selecting the medium quality, but since it defaulted to high quality, we ran it at that level. Definitely the experience is playable, but not as smooth as we would have liked, although I insist that the key will be to adjust the graphics quality to not too high levels so that you have a smooth gaming experience. And finally, in Genshin Impact by default gives us the graphics setting in low quality. We kept it there for this test and only went up to 60 frames per second to take a little higher test. The motion blur also put it on low. In this price range is a game that all devices could become complicated, then we could not be so demanding, and the experience is really good. The truth is that it goes to an acceptable level. As long as you do not record the screen, but if you start recording the screen, it is likely that yes, you get to notice many more frame drops and lower stability. So I insist that it is not a device that is focused on gamers who want to record gameplays with high quality graphics or something like that, but if you play occasionally, will give you a good experience. And with this, we are coming to the end of this video review. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, you know you can indicate it, and we will see you next time.